G'day guys, welcome back to SuperCoach with DR and welcome to the Round 6 Stock Market video. Hope that you're all well and you're having a ripper of a week. Before I get into it, I just want to give a big thank you to our new members. We've got Ryan Burns and Nick Nugent that have signed up this week. Thank you very much for the support, fellas. I really appreciate it. And obviously Beyond Blue will as well. Remember to send me through your email so that I can send you the PDF version of the stock market for this week. And also we are having a member Skype chat, so if you do have a Skype account, feel free to jump in. All the info will be through the members section of the channel. Would love to have you in there. Got a great group of blokes that we had in there last time and really enjoyed each other's company. So great on you, good on you guys. Thank you very, very much. And a big shout out to Isaac Serameta. I was speaking to your mum today, mate. Heard you're a big fan of the channel and you're getting right into SuperCoach this year, having some great results as well. So it's great to see the new generation coming through. Thanks for watching the videos, mate, and congratulations on having a great season so far. I'd love to actually catch up with you in person and have a proper chat about the strategy side of things, mate, because you only start to improve after your first year. But great to see you rolling at the moment, buddy. All the best, mate, and hope to speak with you soon. But look, let's quickly look back to last week. It was a round that had absolutely everything, didn't it? Some premiums on opposite ends of the scale. Some went absolutely cocoa bananas. Others really failed to deliver. We had some really sad and unfortunate news. You know, Jack Hayes with his knee, Paddy Mccartney, another concussion, just terrible stuff for the fella. It's just such bad luck, and, you know, my heart really, really does go out to him. We always had Brodie Grundy, who got injured during, what was it, that last quarter. Played the game on as well, so really fought it out. Big effort from the big man, but unfortunately, he's now a must-trade out option. We've got many questions this week. You know, is Braden Pruse still a viable option, even though he's gone up 90k? Is this man up the top this week, Sam Hayes, an absolute must-trade in? We've got Clarry, one of the blokes that went off last week, along with Keller Mills. Do we need to bring these blokes in? Is Clarry an absolute must-have, non-negotiable this week? We'll talk about it. We've got Nick Vlaston there. Am I pronouncing it right? I'm not too sure. Vlastone. Either way, you know who I'm talking about. Is he going to be any sort of a viable option for us this year as a pod? Well, I'll give you my opinion on him. We've obviously got the young man, Jack Hayes, there, who unfortunately we've got to trade out. And the man whose head is hidden there behind Rhino and Nick, Brodie Grundy, as I mentioned, he is now an absolute must trade out. The rookies, we've got a few on the bubble this week, a couple that may be looking nice, but some others that don't fill me with great confidence in regards to things like job security or scoring potential. So we'll have a chat about all that stuff, but I have changed things up a little bit this week, so I'd be interested to hear your feedback. I have been going into a fair bit of detail about some of these real pod type selections at an awkward price range that realistically we're probably not going to look to trade into our sides. Not many people own them in order to want to know if they're ready to be traded out, for example. So what I'm going to try to do is focus more on those real realistic selections of blokes that I think that people will be actually looking to bring in this week or the next, or at least in the near future, and also those blokes that are highly owned and maybe on the chopping block as well this week. I have still put up the numbers for those random type players, but I won't go into as much detail. So see how I go. If you prefer this style where I don't go into all that detail with those type of players and I focus on, I suppose, the major selections, let me know. But if you want me to go back to how it's always been and sort of hone in on basically everyone that's got a lowish type break even or someone I think's an interesting selection, then let me know as well, and I can always go back to that next week. But apart from that, I've been speaking for too long already. It's getting late. Let's start off, as we always do, with the Premium Defenders 500k plus. The man at the top of the list this week, Alex Witherden. Now, do I finally give in and say that he's going to be a good pick moving forward? Well, it's pretty hard not to after his stellar score of 152 points against the power. He amassed 24 kicks, 10 handballs, going at 82% efficiency, 702 metres gained. It's an impressive stat line, and he's now gone 4 tons in a row. Another good sign is that he's improved his score every week. In order, 5 scores read 63, which obviously wasn't great, then 106, 127, 134, and a 152. If the pattern continues, he's looking at a bloody 160 plus next week, but Look, in all seriousness, he's the ultimate pod with a great ceiling, a nice roll, 7 kick-ins, and a lot to go through him. In 2020, had a decent 4-game stretch with a big 170, 85, 100, and a 101, but the bookends to those 4 scores are a 41 and a 69, but I think one of them at least may have been due to an in-game injury. I'm not exactly sure on that one though. But look, had some okay scores last year with a 122, 133. But along with those, we see a 68, 59 and a 32. So consistency's always been the knock. But as I mentioned, has a nice role. Hearn, he's getting phased out. The ball's been living down in West Coast defence, as we know. So if you like me and you play it a little bit safer, they're not the pick for you, but his break-even suggests that you're still getting a lot of value, but at the same time, it is a lot of coin to cough up for somewhat of a speculative pick. But he's done everything that he can to convince people that he'll be a good pick moving forward at this stage. Dan Houston, one of my burn men, but I have to admit he's going well. Consistency has been an issue in the past. A lot of the time, I think it's been due to his versatility, but lately been playing a half-back wing type role, averaging 108 on the season. Not a consideration for me, and it's probably based on my checkered history with the pick, but if you like what you see, you can go for it. James Sicily, the man I bought in last week, I'm a very happy owner. What we've been blessed with this year is a number of defenders with consistent scoring patterns, and Sis is one of those, 105, 84, 105, 113, 126, 113. Absolutely fantastic, particularly if, unlike me, you actually started with him. I'm not, overly advocating you have to get him in, but really he's not putting a foot out of place and looks every bit the top 8 defender. I do still recommend bringing him in, not at all costs. But yeah, look, I can see if you may still have some reservations, but he's behaving himself, not giving away too many free kicks. I think he's a decent selection. He's a cheaper alternative to the Doherty, Sinclair, Witherden types, and he's got more runs on the board than most of those players. Maybe not a Doherty. I thought I actually cursed him because he had a dog of the first quarter, Sicily. Nothing went right, but then he really bounced back and scored, I think, about 45 to 50 points just in the last quarter. So, yeah, congrats if you started with him, and I think you can still bring him into your side if you like him. Broad, I tell you what, you'd have to say one of the biggest surprise packets this year. Surely it can't last, can it? 101 3-round average. Let's be honest, all the Richmond defenders went nuts on the weekend, didn't they? But not a player I could ever bring in, but deserves credit for what he's doing. Dane Zorko, keep him on your watch list. The Achilles still worries me, and he's not in the greatest form anyway. Maybe a late season upgrade for mine. Georgie Boy, no discussion needed here. If he's not in your team by now, there's not much more I can say to convince you. Bailey Dale's got a nice 3-round average of 100, a low ownership player who's slightly gone under the radar this year. To summarise his season, he's basically been a high floor, low ceiling type player. Scores of 86, 90, 95, 115, 116 and a 121. I think that's the reason why he's remained relatively unnoticed. No major spike games, yet no disaster games. So never really entered the conversation, but we need to get him in the conversation now as a pretty safe pick based off the data. He won't win your games, but he won't lose your games. Almost just a role type player in your side that should be solid most weeks. A piece of the overall puzzle. Bit more of a background piece, like a plain blue section of sky. Not part of the head or anything, I'm not sure if that analogy made sense, but I suppose that's how I feel about Dale. Stephen May, like Dale, just being ultra consistent. Scores this year to date read 76, not a great start, but 108, 114, 111, 131, and a 99 last week. That's pretty impressive. From memory, had a big start to the game, but faded slightly. The king of the kickouts and very low ownership. Another pod that looks fine to bring in if you want to do something a little bit different. Main concern is if he has to play like a major tight sort of lockdown role, and I suppose if the opposition team kicks accurately. And Tommy Stewart, I'm going to use this word again, but Mr. Consistency, number 3, 103, 103, 104, 129, and 97 last week. Did miss that one game, but that 97, that was his lowest score of the season. Feels like deja vu, doesn't it? High floor, lower type ceiling. For mine though, Tommy is the safest pick out of the 3. I'm talking Dale, May and Stewart, and the one that I certainly like the best. Jack Sinclair, I've said it for the last few weeks, I really like this selection. Either role that he plays, be that as a distributor off half-back or running through the midfield, he can score well, taking plenty of kick-ins now, which is a huge bonus to his SuperCoach scoring game. Still remains a pod, and I can understand why, because he's got a lack of premium scoring history, but I'm now convinced he's a real deal. Sure, a sub-ton must be on the card soon, but with scores of 100, 114, 116, 135, 113... 112. I see no reason for him going backwards. I don't think they need him playing a half forward role, and I think he's got a lot more confidence in his own game. The negative to the pick is probably the current price point. A lot of coins cough up for a defender that's never fully put a consistent SuperCoach season together, but I think you're buying quality at the same time, and having him over, say, a Whitfield type is a massive advantage. Pendles just continues to play well, mainly playing down back with late stints in the midfield, putting his hand up for selection in our sides and keeping his body pretty fresh by playing in a position where he's not getting as banged up, I suppose. Richie, very slow start on the weekend, but then went bang, punched out a 76-point second half, and I think part of the reason for his poor first half was the fact that he did lose a few kickouts. I've got a feeling he may have been on the bench at the time, though, because we know he's got the monopoly there. I'll just watch him for now, and he'll present value over the next month. Crispy, owners are happy. 3 triple-figure scores in a row, playing some consistent footy. Will Grundy out-hurt him? It's certainly not great, but hopefully Darcy Cameron can manage to at least provide a contest. Seagull, unfortunately these days, has to share the chips. Got to feed the younger ones, such as Blakey and Campbell, but just some little costly errors that I noticed on the weekend. Some poor kick-ins, spoilt the ball instead of taking an easy contested mark. And this may come down to a lack of communication from his teammates. I'm not too sure, but at the end of the day, it's points lost. Just pop him on your watch list for now and grab him for a bit of a bargain if he comes good. Dawson, been okay this season. Not his best game with a score of 81 on the weekend. Doesn't really interest me, but I think he's got a good game in him. Again, just watch him for now. Doherty bounced back after a poor score the week before. This week 122, 32 touches, but disposal efficiency did hurt him, only going at 63%. 22 kicks, 10 handballs, so we do like that kick to handball ratio. 7 marks as well. Looks to be one of our premium options this year, and someone I would happily welcome into my side. Again, we are paying up almost 580k for him, so I'd prefer to hopefully wait for a poorer type game and then jump on. Main question is, will another poorer game come anytime soon? I'm not too sure because he's in ripper form. And Jaden Shaw, well, I forgave him last week and he showed the love with a 100 plus score. Next week, he will actually present some awesome value. So if you don't own him, I think most people that watch my channel would. But if you don't, I highly recommend jumping on him. Onto the defenders, 250 to 500k, and current owners would be very, very happy to see this man at the top of the list this week. Josh Gibcus, great game over the weekend, really resetting his break even with the first 100 plus of his career, now at -2. Really unlucky if you traded him out last week, like I know some people did. Looks like the rest did him the world of good, I think. Definitely hold if you own him. Obviously, probably the most obvious statement, I've made Nastoki this year, as he's got a lot more coins to make. Now, if he gets another 100 plus type score, which he's done last week, I'm certainly not expecting it, but he'll rise around 40k and he'll see himself at over 300, which would be absolutely fantastic, as said, for current owners. Now, this man is a really interesting selection, and I've had a number of questions fly into my inbox this week, and I was a little bit surprised about the amount of interest, actually. But look, Nick Voston, I'll tell you what, there've been a few pods in the Richmond defence who have actually had a really solid year to date, and after his first 2 games of the year, this man is putting his hand up as a pod selection that does offer some value. Now, I must admit, he's a name that I just scroll past in SuperCoach without thinking twice, but the man is at least getting a few people thinking about a future with him in their side. So he seems to be playing a loose intercept type role in defence, and as we all know, that's a great role for SuperCoach, averaging 126.5 after 98 against the Crows and a massive 155 against the D's. Against the Crows, looking back, had 21 touches, 10 of those intercept possessions, clunked 9 marks, had a few kick-ins, which I'm not too happy about as a Jaden Short owner, but last week really upped that, had 30 disposals, 12 marks, 3 tackles. The main issue is, Nick, is his lack of premium scoring history, and to a smaller degree, or maybe not even a small degree, his durability. His career best average came back in 2019, and that was only a 91.2. In 2020, a slight drop to a flat 90, and then back to an 84.6 from only the 12 games last year. So, what is it? He's around his 10th year in the system, probably, and he's never really screen picked me. But look, this is a new year. He has a slightly new role. Looks like Gibcus maybe freeing him up a little. He's tough, he's brave, uncompromising, usually gives his all. And although I don't expect him to continue at this wonderful average, I still think that he may be able to have a solid year score-wise. Personally, this is not a pick that I look at whatsoever. I wouldn't be trading him in personally, particularly after just the one big game. And he has had some big games in the past as well. I'd prefer and wait for some data, but obviously the issue is the decision almost needs to be made now if you really want to take advantage of the potential value that he presents. As I said, I couldn't do it personally, but I may have undersold with a bit, so there may be some potential with Glaston. I do have the buy now along with the pod symbol. That is simply if you want to go completely away from the crowd. I'm not personally recommending him as a buy now. Definitely bring him into your side. But if you're a little bit of a risk taker, then this bloke is the man that you may look to bring in anyway. Noddy, after a couple of big ones, came back down to earth with a 42. That's all right, buddy. Look, struggled to get into the game. Not a lot of impact. Literally didn't touch it in the last quarter. Time on ground was low, but I think he's got a couple more credits in the bank after his previous 2 weeks, and I do expect him to retain his spot. Cash growth, well, that's been slowed up a little bit with the low score in his system, and he will need a decent score next week to continue to rise, and this is at a more rapid rate I'm talking here. I think we just hold and we'll assess probably in a week or two. Mitch Hinge did actually play VFL on the weekend, 15 touches, apparently not a whole lot of impact. It's just concerning that he was fit and they chose not to play him. Did they just want to ease him back? Well, I'm not too sure. After a couple of nice wins, maybe hard for him to break back in. It's super frustrating as he's got more money to make. He can provide some decent on-field scoring for us down back. If he's not named again this week, I may jump off. Could even be a possible sub-risk. I'll be waiting eagerly on the Hinge selection for the team sheets to drop, I think, and then making my decision after I get a little bit more info about what's happening with him this week. Bowie all of a sudden hit form again and now continuing to rise. Been a decent selection and without doubt, certainly a better pick than Chapman. I was questioning that after the first, 4 rounds. So we hold, make some more coin, and then flip to a premium if you can. Paddy Mccartney, I mentioned in my round review how devastating this was. Shattered for him. Won't go over it again, but hopefully comes back soon after his mandatory time off. We're all sending our best wishes, all of us from the SuperCoach community. Look, I'm in the hold camp as he's still got the potential to make, I think, at least another 50k, and he will provide great cover. I'd consider possibly holding for the year if we get no rookies down back because, let's be honest, there's not many on the horizon. So at this stage, he's actually a bit of a hold for me. Luke Mcdonald, look, he's an interesting selection. We've seen him produce premium numbers for 1 year in the past, so he has it in him. Does he have it in him this year? I'm not too sure. He'll be back soonish. Consistency may be an issue, but 102 points on the weekend, that was acceptable, and he may appeal to some. The Lizard, love him, but we can't select him. Dyson Heppel, no on him. Howe, playing some good footy, pod option, just not for me. Just so many safer options to select. And Nick Dacos, well, some people are questioning whether or not it's almost time to let this man go. I can see why he's saying that, but for me, he's the rookie that's got the highest potential to give you a decent on-field score, either in your midfield or down back. We know Pruse probably obviously is a rookie that does have the highest ceiling out of anyone, but Dacos, his DPP, it makes him really versatile, and I just think that we hold him to the buys. None of these blokes really interest me, to be honest. Luke Ryan, not in great form, and a few question marks concerning the pick, mainly in regards to his role from week to week. In his own words, he said that his role really is a week-to-week proposition, and that's generally not a good sign for SuperCoach. He's getting less intercepts, disposal counters down, and it seems like the next gen of Freo players are really starting to come through. I don't think that the additions of Chapman and Young have really benefited Ryan, and if anything, taken away some of his points. Great value for what he can produce, but my advice would be to wait and jump on if he can punch out a couple of decent scores on the trot. McInerney, got talent, but wouldn't look to trade him in. Adam Sard, playing and scoring well, the ultimate pod type pick that you select if you want to go away from the crowd. I could probably name 10 other defenders that I like better though. Dan Rioli, only a 72 on the weekend, but he's been a pretty successful pick to date. Jordan Ridley went quiet in that last quarter when forced into a bit of a different role and really did leave 100 on the table here. I'm still not a fan of the pick at all, but you probably just still hold as an owner. And Lockie Whitfield, oh man, I'm a frustrated owner. What to do with him? The main issue is that we've got so many other things to do, and he's like an annoying little pebble in your shoe. You know, gave away 50 for umpire abuse, 10 points at quarter time, had 26 dream team though, so it looks like he's scoring a lot better in that format, but what does that say? He's just not using the ball well. Only a last quarter move to the wing saved him. Was on, I think it was around 30 at 3/4 time, and literally doubled his score in the last to make it, well, a half respectable score if I'm being kind. The main issue here is that you're getting limited value if you trade him out. Don't get me wrong, if you've got no other issues and you've got trades in the bank, go for it, move him on and avoid the headache. But personally, I'm going to look to upgrade around him, and hopefully if trades allow, I can move him on later when the team is pretty set. Look, I don't think he can go much worse. Look, after this week's 120 break even, I think he'll probably hold his price, and we're just hoping and praying for a decent score. Major question marks on whether or not that was even a keeper, and at this stage, I'm leaning towards no. On to the defenders, under 250k, really not much to see here, and the cupboard is really bare. You've got Flynn Perez up the top there, 164,800, a 3-rounder, only 42. Nothing to write home about at all. We thought with Aaron Hall that his job security may be pretty solid, and that may be the case, but it's scoring potential that I'm worried about. Look, he is looking to go up 17,500 at the moment, but in the notes section, I do have the ship there. I do think the ship has sailed already on this pick, just not enough value at what he's currently averaging. Jordan Boyd as well, 3-rounder of 35. It's an absolute pass for me. Looking to make 10.5 grand, but really is that enough? Absolutely not for me. And Sam de Koning actually playing some good football, and although he is a slow burn, I think that he's going to be a pretty reliable bench option for us. So he should play from week to week. Job security looks good, is performing in a Cats side. So yeah, glad that I started with him. Handy DPP status. Leave him on there for now. When the time's right, we can look to burn him more. It's a real possibility with the lack of rookie defenders or potential rookie defenders coming up, but we have to keep this bloke. It may actually be an option. On to the mids, 500k plus, and this man, Keller Mills, at the top of the list this week, has possibly given us the biggest score that we'll see this year. 214 points. He had 37 disposals. 34 of those were effective. How's that for using the football well? 17 of those were contested, had 9 inside 50, 6 clearances, few score assists, and a goal, which was just the cherry on top. He'll be 700k before we know it. No way, in my opinion, will he be able to maintain that price. Will certainly fall down again, but if you want to buy, the time is now. I've got the caution symbol on there as well, just because his Achilles still worries me, and if it flares up again for some reason, that would be a major concern. But the way he plays, it's built for good SuperCoach scoring, and if you trust his body, go ahead and welcome him into your team. The next man, Clayton Oliver, the man of the hour, and in my opinion, will be the most popular traded in player this week. I'm talking about premium player. May have some competition with a rookie in our ruck lines, which we'll get to soon. But look, non-owners, they were hoping for Clarry to be available at around the 600k mark this week, but With 41 possessions, 22 contested, 13 clearances, 3 tackles, 9 inside 50s, and almost 700 metres gained, he managed to punch out a massive 168. He only went down just over 3k. Also won the Frank Hughes medals at Frank Hughes, I think that's the name of the medal, for best on ground, which was a nice, I suppose, reward for his efforts. This is absolutely the week to bring in Clarry, and is a best premium by the week. A bloke with many runs on the board, has been doing it since his second year in the system, comes at a discounted price of 619k, which is 53k less than what we paid for him at the start of the year. Has a really friendly upcoming fixture. He's got the Hawks, the Saints, the Eagles and North in the next month. There is a lot to like about Oliver, and if you've got the bank balance to bring him in, lock him in without any hesitation. Titch, I really don't have a lot of faith in him for the same reasons I've mentioned for the last few weeks. He could come good, but I don't really trust Sam Mitchell to play him exclusively in the midfield, and this can obviously affect his potential to score. Still too much risk attached for mine, but he is trending in a more positive direction. Seems to be running freely and over his injury concerns. Tom Green continues to play well, 25 touches, 9 tackles against the Saints. Main issue here is that I don't see a lot of value at his price. You really needed to jump on before or just after the first price rises. I think Hopper's still around 8 weeks away, so hopefully the young bull can just continue to push out some big scores for his owners. And Baz, I know a few people traded him in last week. Unfortunately, only gave those new owners an 80. Not a great start to the relationship, but if you brought him in, you obviously saw potential in him. Don't let the 1 week put you off. Hopefully he repays the faith. Darcy Parish copped a bit of criticism last week about his efforts without the footy, and I did mention in the round 5 stocky that I expected him to bounce back on Anzac Day, and did he bounce back? A lazy 30 touches in the first half, and was on track to smash some records in the process. A bit of a quieter third term, and unfortunately injured his ankle in the last quarter. At the end of the day, racked up 44 touches, 15 contested, 12 clearances, but surprisingly only 310 metres gained. I've heard that he's been cleared of a syndesmosis and may actually be available to play this week. We know that Anzac Day in 2021 started off his hot streak, and will that repeat this year? It's a possibility. The main concern's just that ankle. Jelly, nothing interests me about him, and his 3-round average is really all the explanation that's needed there. Jack Steele continues to improve his score each week, gave owners a 140. Extremely happy to say that I'll officially be an owner this week. It's going to be fun. No more staring away from the TV during Saints games. Now I can watch and actually cheer this great man on. He's expensive, but at the same time, we're getting a discount on his starting price, and in my opinion, it's going to be money well spent. I feel almost like if I don't bring him in now, I run the risk of not bringing him in at all, as I predict that he should hover around this price for a while. Just my personal prediction though. Doesn't need a huge amount of disposals to score well. Out of his 29 touches last week, 16 were contested, also laid 8 tackles, and that's where the points are at when it comes to SuperCoach. The definition of an Uber premium, and should have a decent game this week against the Power, although Drew may pay close attention to him around the stoppages. Benny Keys, what a year to date. Another pick I was wary of, mainly given his poor disposal efficiency and lack of premium scoring history, but he's proved me wrong so far, and very, very happy to be proven wrong on this one, because I love the bloke, got a real soft spot for him. Another workhorse performance on the weekend, and this is just what we expect from him now. 129 points, 33 touches, an equal team high, 16 contested possessions. Did share that with Rory Laird. Over 600 metres gained and 8 clearances. This could have been a monster, but he only went at 63% efficiency, which is no major surprise. But he also kicked 4 behinds. Look, even if 2 of those go through for a goal, he gets a 150. I'm actually considering him for my last mid spot. The data's there. He's working well with Laird. No Sloan. That doesn't seem to have an effect on him. So very positive signs. Not getting a heap of value here, but I think you're getting a solid pick. Andy Brayshaw I've got as a buy now. I think that he's going to be in the top 10 midfielders this season. He's had some really nice scores, an absolute banger in round 2 with a 189. Apart from that, a 132, 127 and a 104. Two lowest scores have been a 95 and a 96. So it seems like his floor is going to be around that mid-90 mark. And his ceiling, well, that can be absolutely anything, can't it, if he gets off the leash. The main issue is, if he does get off the leash, the opposition team will most likely send someone to him and try to blanket his influence on the game. But I do recommend him as a player to certainly have a look at. If you've got, say, your Olivers, your Petrarcas already, your Jack Steels, these types, then there's nothing wrong at all, I don't think anyway, with looking at someone like an Andy Brayshaw. Sammy Welsh on the weekend accumulated 36 possessions but only 106 points. What hurt him was the fact that he only had 9 contested and went at 63% efficiency. But I do like the look at him. He seems to be injury free now and had a few games to warm up. Went close to winning the Brownlow last year, so we know how talented he is. And I'll likely target him after his bye. I think he'll be the perfect upgrade target then. But if you're keen to bring him in now, I think that that's also okay. But I do like a few blokes ahead of him. Track pretty slow out of the gates last week, but still got 25 touches. Just didn't do anything special. He left that to Clarry this week. Unfortunate if you traded him in last week, but I think he bounces back and he'll be a good pick. I was close to bringing him in, but ended up going Sicily as a defender. 2 scores in the 80s in the last 3 weeks has sent his price down. And if you don't have the cash to go up to an out-and-out Uber, then he's still a good pick in my opinion. You should absolutely be targeting Clarry, but don't rule him out if you're already a Clarry owner, for example. Look, you can certainly, and I would prefer personally to wait another week and then reassess and consider trading him in next week just to get one more look at him. Because look, with another 80, I don't think that you want to go there, do you? Cripper, to be honest, I think he can beat his break even of 125 this week against the Roos. Only missed the 1 week with a hamstring issue, but then hit back hard on the weekend. Really rewarded those that stuck that with him and punished those that didn't. 32 touches, 19 contested, 8 clearances, and yet again hits a scoreboard with 3 goals won. Clearly a top 8 mid, in my opinion. I've seen enough to think that that's a pretty logical conclusion to come to. We don't have 2020 to 2021 version Crips here. We've got the vintage Cripper back in town, dominating games, and on a positive note, doesn't have to do it all by himself. He's not carrying the whole team on his shoulders. He's got Walsh, Hewitt, Chera, Kennedy, who stepped up. So much to like. And I think he's absolutely a buy now if you don't own him. At the price, he presents so much value. Yeah, I think that you just get him into your side. Rory Laird actually deserves some attention. He's quietly gone about his business and actually holds the 6th highest 3-round average in the comp. 30 touches last week, although 21 of those were handballs. 3 frees against hurt him slightly, but this is where he really managed to boost his score. 11 tackles, that was huge from Laird, and to put that into some sort of context, he's laid a total of 11 tackles for the year, from rounds 3 to 5. So doubled his season count in 1 week. Certainly putting his hand up and an option to consider. 2 continues to disappoint score-wise, but many more positive signs this week. All of a sudden he can tackle again. This is a big weapon he was leaving on safety mode during the previous couple of weeks, but did give us 8 on the weekend, which was great. I think what really hurt him was his early clanger count. Believe it or not, he was on -8 halfway through the quarter, -8. Gave 3 free kicks away. I think it was in the first 6 minutes. There was a throw, which was questionable, and a couple of high contact frees against. Again, maybe owner's bias, but one at least was questionable again there. But another high contact free paid early in the second. Yeah, at least he was trying to tackle, which is what we want to see. But without a doubt, we hold him if we own him. There's no sideways trading Took. If you don't have him though, I'd advise to wait another week. And if you like what you see against Collingwood, then jump on him at a really discounted price. I probably have too much faith, but I still view him as a top 6 mid from here on. If you take away that negative scaling at the start of the game, turn a couple of those free kicks into effective tackles and even a possible hold on the ball, that 99 gets closer to a 120 mark. And I may be making excuses for him, and admittedly, there's a few what-ifs, but I'm going to continue to support my man. Surely he comes good soon. Lockie Neal, disappointing captaincy score for my team last week, but did make it to triple figures with a nice boost late in the game from a goal and some nice touches. We've all got him, we all keep him, and we all hope he gives us a banger score this week. Jack McRae, and Bevo stuffed around with him again at times during this game, which is frustrating and very, very low possession game for his usual standards. I still consider him an absolute must-have. He still owns one of the highest 3-round averages in the comp, even with that low score in his system. I think just keep the faith for this man, and we just need to hope that Bevo lets him do what he does best. And the Bonds and Ollie Wines, I suppose, identical break-evens. Just put them on your watch list, track their progress, and pounce when or if the time is right. If you rate them as picks, definitely avoid for now, though. On to the midfielders, 250 to 500k. Look, I'll be honest with you here. I simply wouldn't be looking to trade in any of these players into your side. I don't think a lot of discussion's required here, particularly with, well, let's just say the first 1, 2, 3, 4 players. You know, Ward is a pod you could, but he won't feature in the top 12 mid, so a bit of a waste of a spot. Newcomb's a pass for me. Young bull with good potential, had a solid season, but a no from me. Seb Ross, well, I did have the trap on him last week, which may be disrespectful because he does now have a solid 3-round average of 110. Look, in a nutshell, with any of these players, and this is as trade-in options, you're buying him as a keeper. Yeah, Ross, I just don't see as a keeper for the year and a bloke that can maintain a 110 plus average. Again, could be wrong. Shield, same deal. Matty Rao bounced back on the weekends. Now, one thing we also need to keep in mind as well is the fact that he did miss a few shots on goal. So that 103 could have been closer to a 130 if he kicks straight. And I knew this would happen. The week that I trade him out, he's going to go 100 plus. But look, he didn't look absolutely fantastic. But particularly in that first quarter, I must admit that he did look like a bit of a new man. I think he was on 38 points, I think it was from memory, to win the first. So it was looking like a 125 plus type score. Fortunately, for those that did trade him out, he didn't make a heap of money. Well, he didn't make anything. He basically hit right on his break even, but he will start to make some money now. Look, am I happy I traded him out? Well, no, look, I would have loved to keep him aside, and he's a fun player to have, but at the same time, I didn't like what I saw the last 3 weeks, and I just thought that the time was right, and it did allow me to make a really, really big move, or some really, really big moves. It was a domino that just had to fall in order for me to bring in both Jack Steele and Clayton Oliver this weekend, and if you've seen my round review, you obviously know that. So, look, you could keep on to him. He's absolutely fine to keep, but again, if you do need to get up to Clayton Oliver this week, I would have no hesitation in trading Matty Rao. Even though that break-even 66, let's just remember that he's been throwing out some of these type scores. So there's every chance that he goes in the 60s and every chance he goes above 100. I'm just not sure with this pick at the moment. He hasn't had a lot of consistency to his game, a little bit up and down. But either way that you want to go about Matty Rao, I completely understand. Caldwell, think he's okay to move on if you need to, but probably there's some other blokes in front of him that you do want to move on, and this may be one of them. Mr. Horne-Francis, an average score over the weekend in another game where things just didn't quite go right. He'd do some good things, then some bad things. In the second, I remember he gave away 50, then one of those dribble kicks for a turnover, and this was after a nice one too. The ride's been fun, but unfortunately that break-even is now in the red and is a prime trade-out target. Certainly, he's got the capability to get his cash gen going again with a 90s type score. We've seen that already from him twice this season, but to me, he looks a little tired. Disposal's been off, and with so many great options to bring in this week, he seems like a logical player to cull. Originally, my plan, similar to Dacos, was just to hold him until the buys, but at this point in time, given the current circumstances, my current circumstances, I'm getting his score off-field and replacing it with a premium average from Oliver. And that's potentially up to 65 points more a week, which accumulates to a big stack of points over the rest of the season. 39, 65 in his last 2 weeks. They've been his poorest scores of the season. So you can either view that as a negative or a positive depending on which way you want to spin it. But for me, I'm saying goodbye to the number 1 pick. And Matty Crouch, an easy pass, just doing nothing to make us consider him. And we'll finish the midfield discussion by taking a look at the blokes under 250k. The man up the top, Neil Erasmus, unfortunately concussed over the weekend, so no chance to play, but wish him a speedy recovery. He just remains on the bubble. Windhager, know at his price, not seeing enough, pass for mine. Benny Hobbs, he's on the bubble this week, but again, another pass for me. Scored okay in his first game with a 65, but don't really like his role, and with some of the other star mids returning, I can't see him getting the mid minutes required to warrant selection, particularly at a 150k starting price. I may be completely wrong though, as he's, a tough, talented kid, but he does his best work on the inside. I just don't know if there's a spot available for him at this point in time. Finn Callaghan, the talented player, was obviously an early pick, and apparently some clubs were even keen to trade up to nab him. 76 points on the weekend and a 62 average over his first 2 games. Main issue here is his expensive starting price. If he continues at his current average, it'll take him around 6 weeks to make 100k. So that's not favourable enough for me, and is the main reason why I'd be passing on him. He's also coached by Leon Cameron, and that's a scary proposition in itself. Job security, I think, is okay, but again, with the Leon factor, I honestly have no idea. McGuinness, now a little bit more cash to make, so hold, and I'm sure you've got other issues anyway. Mcdonald just continues to disappoint, a very, very slow burn, and on the chopping block soon, I think, if things don't improve. Main issue is the lack of profit he's made, and selling him now only makes his 60k at his starting price. Ward, looking better form than McDonald, but still disappointing. Still waiting for that elusive 80 plus from him. Ron Repeat, he's got the role, getting the opportunity, but just not getting the job done for us. Wanganeen Miller, look, that break-even's getting closer and closer to that 3-round average. We'll need a big spike game to get his cash gen going again, but personally, just don't see one coming. And Jackson Mead, an indifferent season to date, pretty much in the same boat as Wanganeen Miller. On to the Rucks, and I tell you what, hasn't there been so much going on in this particular line? There's been some absolute carnage lately, but also some great opportunities. Now, talking about great opportunity, the man at the top of the list this week, Sam Hayes, presents a wonderful, wonderful trading option this week, and I'm going to go as far as saying he is an absolute must get this week. And I'll give you 3 reasons why. The first one is the price. 123,900. You're not getting much lower than that. You can get a couple of 102k players from time to time, but they don't come up too often. So really, really love the price. That's not inflated in any way, and he is a mature pick. He has been in the system, just hasn't got the opportunity at AFL level before this year. The second thing that we look at is his average and his potential to score. He's got a 2-round average, and it does say 3-round average here, but obviously he's on the bubble coming into his 3rd game this week. That's 85. So 85 over 2 weeks, 100 over the weekend. Absolutely fantastic. And the third thing is obviously his job security. So we know that Lysette is out for the medium to long term, and this bloke has the number 1 mantle at the moment, and that's not going to change anytime soon. Look, he's got some deficiencies, and that's mainly his endurance, his tank. The big fella, puts in some heavy breathing during the game and does struggle to get to contest, but his big strength is actually in the ruck contest itself, and many hit-outs to advantage. That's what he does really, really well. So hopefully, he can build into the season, really work on that tank. But with that break-even at -97, a number 1 ruck at a bargain basement price, it's just simply too good to refuse. So if you've got something like a Grundy, and you've already got the man that we'll talk about next, Braden Pruse, I don't think it's the worst idea to actually trade all the way down to Sam Hayes and then you can upgrade somewhere else on a different line. I'm a huge advocate of bringing him in this week. I think I've made that overly clear by now. So do yourself a favour and absolutely lock this bloke in. The next man, Braden Pruse. I am a very happy owner. I did jump on him last week, and I tell you what, at the start of the game, things were not looking good. The big fella gave a couple of free kicks away, and again, I thought that I'd just cursed him, but really did hit back. And at the end of the day, he's given us a 117. Now, the big question is this: is it too late to bring him into your side? Well, we'll look at his break even, and that's a negative 46. Over the next 3 weeks, if he continues to score how he is, he's going to make 150k quite easily. And look, I think we can just keep this bloke right up until the buys. He is an absolutely perfectly solid R2 option at the moment. Now, an issue is obviously his durability. Is he going to go and get himself suspended? Yada. I agree with that, and that's also why we get Sam Hayes there, because he's going to be playing from week to week. Look, we can never predict injuries and all the rest, but that's obviously going to be the big plan for us. So I really do like the Pruse and Hayes combo at R2 and R3. Now, I'm not saying if you've got someone like Max Gawn and a Jared Witts to go out and trade one of these blokes for a Braden Pruse. I'm not saying that, but if you've got Grundy in particular, really any of the blokes here, so I'd trade from a Rob, even though he's the third highest scoring ruckman for total points this year. I'd certainly trade down from Rowan Marshall. His break even is low. We can see that it's 57 there. But at the same time, Ryder's coming back in, and we know what effect that generally has on Marshall's scoring. Darcy, I would probably just keep on to. You've selected him for a reason. You've gone through some absolute hell, so I'd hate to trade him out that he comes back good. If you haven't traded out Timmy English yet, absolutely do it, because he's going to be out for 3 to 4 weeks. So if you've got Tim English, and he's in your rucks, or you can swing him into your rucks, then absolutely you can trade him out for Braden Pruse, or again for Sam Hayes. I'm going down the list. Grundy is an absolute must trade out now, and well done Brodie Grundy for actually playing out the game, because he must have been in a fair bit of discomfort as well. Even Luke Jackson, we look at that break even, it's 136, and I'm pretty sure he's even out with, yes, I've got the symbol there, the COVID protocols this week, which is really unfortunate for owners. It's coming at a bad time, because we've got Hugh Dixon out, who's most likely on our forward bench, some other blokes that we're really not sure about if they even get a game this week after some subpar performances. Yeah, it's a bit of a tough spot to have Luke Jackson at the moment. So if I was a Luke Jackson owner, I'm not, because I wasn't a huge fan of the pick anyway, but I would seriously consider bringing in one of the top 2 selections. I pretty much talked about all the blokes here, haven't I? You got Hugh Dixon. Hopefully he'll come back after a calf. I'm just keeping him at the moment. He's got that good swing, more money to make when he comes in. I think the Goodwin Simpson, actually does rate him as a player, and I do think he comes back into the side. Peanut Laddams, I'll put a pass there, but my bias. I can't. I forgot to put the peanut symbol there. I just went straight to the pass, but I should have put this peanut symbol there. But look, the bloke had a massive game over the weekend. He's actually looking okay in place of Hickey at the moment. He's obviously injured on the sidelines, but you know how I feel about the peanut. Destroyed my season, sent me off the rails a couple of years ago. I haven't forgiven the man yet, and absolutely not. You couldn't give me an extra trade to bring this man into my side. Enough of the peanut. We've talked about Hazy's gone. We've talked about Rob. Now Jared Witts. Wowee. I had the big decision over the weekend, because I knew that I had to trade out one of my rucks. And remember, originally my plan wasn't even to trade out Grundy or Witts last week. It was simply because I got to see, and I didn't even really talk that much about Pruse, but what I saw was the fact that he was able to team up really well with Flynn, and they both showed the ability to score well playing in the same side. I thought that was a real positive. He probably left some points at the door as well, Pruse, because Marshall did receive a corky. I don't think he played the fourth quarter, and I think he was against players like Battle, and just the hitouts weren't necessarily to advantage when he was coming up against basically no competition. So that was a little bit disappointed, but Pruse has a lot more money to make. I'm still a big advocate to bring him into your side. But Wits, as I said, well, he's given us 3 really big monsters this year, and that's really kept him ticking over. He had a really low break-even last week of 39, smashed out that big score. I was hoping for him to get to around the 500 mark. All of a sudden, we see him at 530,900. So, look, for me, I'm viewing him as a keeper, and why not, what he's produced compared to some of the other blokes that, are meant to be bigger names, like your Grundys, like your Darcys. Well, Wits is just playing better football, I think, at the moment. Look, he's given us a couple of, 80 type scores, a 90 and a 70 in there as well, but those really big monsters do really balance things out. Great thing is, excuse me, I'm losing my voice. Great thing is, he comes up against a Grundyless, excuse me. Oh, I can't edit that out. I need to just keep on going. I do apologise for that. Wouldn't be lovely hearing me choke over here. Not COVID, I promise. Been lucky enough not to actually get COVID yet. But with coming up against Collingwood this week, so I'm losing my train of thought. Coming up against Collingwood this week, who's it going to be? Darcy, most likely. Cox. I'm not too sure, but you'd think that it's probably Darcy Cameron. And surely Wits has got to dominate him. So as owners, I'd get pretty excited about his potential to score another monster this week. And the only bloke I haven't really touched on here is Big Maxi. So he's looking to lose 500. So actually that break even, that is disrespectful. That is in red, but it's 129. The 3-rounder is 138. So sorry, Big Maxi. That should actually be in green, big fella. But look, with Gawn, I think it's pretty simple. We all need to end with him in our sides. Whether or not we've got like a Wits, Pruse type combo, we know that we need to get a Pruse type up. If you've got just say a Gawn, I don't know, even Marshall, any other combination, probably apart from Gawn and Darcy, you'd need to get him up. So not much else to say about the big fella. That 3-round average really says everything with a 138. But as I said, a lot to talk about, a lot to divulge when it comes to the Rucks this week. In conclusion, I'm going to say it again, bring Hayes into your side. Don't be afraid to bring Pruse in. If you're in some sort of a situation where you've got Pruse, you could plan to get Hayes and also bring Gawn in for Grundy, let's just say. So let's just say you've got a situation where you've got the combination of Grundy, let's just say Jack Hayes maybe, and even a Pruse, then what you could do is get Max Gawn in and also get Sam Hayes in. I think that would be a pretty reasonable option. On to the forwards, 500k plus. We've only got 4 players here, pretty short list, but at the top of the list, we do have Josh Dunkley, 572,900, a break even in the green with 90. We are seeing the best of Josh Dunkley. Well, we did see the best of him last week with a nice 140 type score. A couple of blokes that I was coming up against in league matches had him as a vice captain, which was a really, really nice option. So he's looking to rise a little bit there, getting closer and closer towards 600k. An absolute must-have, and did display why over the weekend. Now, Libba, really, really interesting selection. Did have a ripper of a game, and for the first time this year, actually led the Dogs for CBAs. So he's priced at 535,800. Obviously got that DPP. I've just noticed that I've been a little bit slack and completely forgotten to add some of those little symbols I normally put there. So I do apologise for that. But all these blokes, apart from Heaney, do actually have DPP, and that's obviously mid-forward status. But here's an interesting pick, Libba. Again, I do mention this, but how many Dogs can you actually have in your side? It's a matter of putting a lot of trust into Bevo. The issue is that his role is a little bit inconsistent. If we knew week to week that he was going to play that bull inside type role that he's been renowned for over the years, Libba, and where he actually plays his best football, then great, we select him. We just get him into your sides, because remember, I've actually paid in the past, and this may be going back a little while now, but I've paid up big money to start him as a premium defender in my side. So he has a heap of upside, Libba. The downside is the fact that that role will most likely be a little bit uncertain from week to week. If we're potentially worried about someone like Jack Macrae, then we're obviously going to get a little bit worried about Libba as well. But with a 107, he goes up around 7k. I'd need to see this for at least a couple of weeks personally and have great confidence that that's where he'd be spending the large majority of time playing his football. And the issue is, well, how do you get great confidence? Because it is so unpredictable. So that's the only thing I really don't like about the Libba pick, but this definitely could work out. Isaac Keaney, again, I'm a happy owner. I wasn't too happy on the weekend, but the positive sign was, look, that will be one of his worst games, I think, anyway, that he'll play this season, and he still managed to get a score in the 80s. To sort of scrape there with what some people say decent scaling in the last term, but what other people say he may have been a little bit ripped off. Now, I did put a tweet out, not complaining, but just asking the question, why did Isaac only get 4 points for 2 intercept marks, a couple of effective kicks, and there was something else in there as well. And the response that I got was, hey, settle down, mate. Isaac Keaney is one of Champion Data's absolute love childs. A stat that came through to me was the fact that he got 11 points. There was a pack mark in their forward line, contested mark. Should have converted, actually, Isaac. Again, left some points on the table there. Went back, kicked it behind, and got 11 points for it. So I can understand there's, both sides to the argument here. But at the end of the day, this is how you're going to feel about it. If you are not an Isaac Keaney owner, you think he got scaled up way too much. And if you are an owner, he didn't get enough scaling. We're greedy as owners, aren't we? So, look, I've got a buy now on him still, even though that break-even is in the red. He's going to be one of the top forwards that we can select this year. Going to be interesting when Papley comes back into the side. I don't think it's this week. He was used predominantly forward last week. A little bit of time coming into midfield as well, but just didn't really get around it. Things just didn't quite go to plan for him last week. But as I mentioned, a positive, the fact that he can still score around that mark when he's having a bad game. And Tim Taranto was really under par. That break even is all the way up to 150 now. Similar to Heaney, things just didn't go right. Butchered the ball as usual. Projected score of 104 will see him fall 20 grand. So my advice, I've got the binoculars there obviously, is just to keep him on your watch list. Keep him on your watch list, because I certainly think he's got the potential to be a top 8 forward. We'll just track him and just see how he goes. The only thing I should mention as well, the symbol on Libba is that role reversal symbol, the 2 R's there, the mirrored R's. So in other words, we don't really know from week to week whether or not he's going to be playing that inside mid role, or if he's going to be spending a little bit more time up forward. And we'll finish off with the forwards under 250k. Thanks very much for sticking with me as always. The bloke up the top of the list, I think, is the only realistic trading option this week, and it's Malcolm Roses, 130,600, 74 for a 3-round average, a negative break-even of 71, projected score of 47. And remember, that is quite modest. It doesn't match up with his 2-round average, which we'd normally see for rookie-type players, because of the fact that he did play a few games last year. So that always gets taken into account. So that is pretty modest for what he's actually been producing this year. But if he does go to 47, he will rise around 53k. Now look at this in the notes section. The first time I've had 3 different symbols within the one. We've got a bit of everything going on here. So I do have the best buy. He's clearly the best buy out of all the options here. I've got the bubble symbol there because he's about to play his 3rd game. But that's the question, is he about to play his 3rd game this week? I do have the red cross there. So there's a bit of an injury concern. It's related to his calf, but I'm not sure about the severity. I have heard from a couple of people that it was very minor. He'll be right to play this week. I've heard, it's a bit of touch and go. Others, you'll just have to get through training. there's a bit of different information that's been filtering through, so I haven't got confirmation on this. So obviously if he doesn't play, then that's fine. You don't have to bring him in. Whenever he does and the time's right, go for it. But I tell you what, if you watch my round review, you know that I actually brought him in last week, fully knowing that he wasn't going to play. Just enabled me to make a couple of moves this week because, you know, what's he done so far? Well, he has given us a 74 two-round average, kicked a few goals in the one game, then I think it was about 7 or 8 tackles in the other game, so different avenues to score, which we really like to see from rookies. Look, he's a small forward from the Gold Coast, so if someone like Rochelle can give us 30s, absolutely, Roses can do the same thing. So we don't necessarily expect these 70 type scores to continue, but he'll make 100k pretty damn quickly if he does. And even if he goes around 55, then he'll get there pretty quickly, and a better option than all the other blokes who've got here. McCreary are playing way too much. Absolute pass for me. Baldwin, do you really want someone that's averaging 27? Not for me. You'll only make 3,500 anyway. Gallant, not sure how to pronounce it, but simply a slow burn. If you look at that break even, getting towards that 49 projected score. And then if you look at Corey Durden, well, he's an interesting one because we have seen a couple of 70s from him, but it's in red, you know, it's probably the time to move him on. But given the fact he is coming up against North this week, I think that he can actually hit that break even, but it's a little bit more of a gut feel. Again, he could punch out a 30-odd score, because what was it, 14 from memory over the weekend. I haven't even really looked at many of the numbers here because I just don't think that it's worth it. So, yeah, not a heap to talk about here. Fingers crossed that Roses gets up this week. If he does, he's clearly the man to bring in from this list. So that's it from me for now, guys. All the best of luck with your trade ins and your trade outs this week. I will see you soon for the round review Q&A video, so you do have time to leave a question in my round review video, and I will get to it in tomorrow morning's video. So all the best for this week. Hope that you're all well. Much love, much peace, and I'll see you soon in the next one. Cheers, guys. Bye.